Blog Talk Radio.
Here we go with the main event of the evening. Ladies and gentlemen in attendance, boxing fans joining us around the world. It's time for the bout you've all been waiting for. Finally, it is showtime.
Here, man, we dedicate our lives to this sport. We do thousands of sit-ups in camp. We run hundreds of miles, for the ones that take it serious. And we just dedicate ourselves fully to our craft, man. We watch tape. We have attitude. We rooting, and we go into that fight just to land on the line.
This is the Rope a Dope Radio Podcast. I am your host, Chris Carlson. We are live on the switchboard. Okay, we're good. Sorry. Switchboard froze for a second, but we're okay. I see a handful of people on there. What's going on, everybody? It is a Tuesday afternoon, and we are back to talk some boxing. And oh, what a weekend, and really, what a fight. I mean, we had a good weekend and all. Don't get me wrong, but the fight of the year, Zapata and Branchik, fight of the year, quite possibly the knockout of the year, round of the year, and so on and so on and so on. Jose Zapata gets a great knockout in what, 8? Was it 8 knockdowns apiece? And probably 1 or 2 more that they didn't count. So what a great fight. Phenomenal fight. So we're going to start with recap on that, talk a little bit about the undercard fights. Gabriel Flores Jr. was in action. He got a good test. We also got a good test for an amateur, or not amateur, not an amateur at all, for a prospect, Paul Kroll as well on FS1. We'll talk about that main event as well. We'll talk a little bit about the Buatsi fight from the UK as well. So we're going to talk a variety of stuff when it comes to recap. But like I said, that fight of the year was just nuts, man. Just crazy. That is one where you wish, man, I wish that was on normal ESPN. Have they replayed it yet? They got to replay it. Anyway, we will talk about this upcoming weekend. You know, that last weekend's fight was kind of slept on. This weekend coming up is kind of slept on, or at least it was slept on. Well, I mean, it's still slept on, but both fights I thought on ESPN and Showtime were slept on, I guess was my point. But the Sergey Lipinets Showtime card has moved a couple of weeks back now because of some visa issues from his opponent. But I think that's an underrated fight. Another fight I'm looking forward to, and this one is actually on ESPN straight up, Navarrete and Villa. I think that's a really good fight. I haven't been able to see the odds just yet for the fight. I'm patiently awaiting those odds, but we'll check here later in the show in the preview and prediction segment. That's for sure. That's going to be a good style matchup, that Navarrete and Villa. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about Charles Conwell as well, Showbox, not Friday, special Wednesday edition. That's right, I said it. No, I was kidding. So that's a little different. That is a little bit of difference there. So I know right now that it's probably over by now, the Lomachenko press conference media stuff. Also, I think the Gervonta Santa Cruz media stuff is going on here soon. And we have some news on that. There's actually good news for those boxing fans that want to attend a fight. Gervonta Davis and Leo Santa Cruz, the tickets are on sale now. We'll talk about that. That fight got moved for 2 good reasons. I thought it was a good call, just in general. So there will be some news as well. Of course, some current fight news in our boxing Twitter segment. But, we'll talk a little bit about some other stuff. I did watch the Loma Lopez hype show, which I thought was well done. It's really nice to see ESPN, not just the week of the fight promoting a fight, but I've already seen a commercial. And now I've seen some shoulder programming too, and we're not even in fight. We are, a little ways away from it. So I really like that. Canelo refiles a lawsuit. We'll talk about that. Wilder Fury 3 on the move for good reason. December 19th. It's not necessarily the time frame now that the college football stuff has all been figured out. At least knock on wood. We'll see. Hopefully they get through the season. But the December 19th date is not a good date. NCAA stuff, conference finals, and the NFL. A lot of different stuff. So they're on the move a little bit. We'll get into that. And there'll be a variety of other, news items that we'll get into. But we're going to start with some recap, no doubt about it. That Zapata Branchik fight was just phenomenal. By the way, though, if this is your first time listening to the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast, welcome. It streams live right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. It streams live at Archives. It's basically the headquarters. It's boxing heavy, but we do a football and basketball shows throughout the year. The number to dial is 646-381-4990. But you don't have to go right to Blog Talk on Rope-A-Dope and download the show there or listen to the browser. You can find the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast platform on Apple Podcast. You can find it on iHeartRadio. Player FM is another place where we got a lot of listens. Tune in, Stitcher, really all across the board. Also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network, which can be found everywhere, including Spotify. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. It's boxing, it's football, it's basketball, it's baseball, it's everything in between. And one more thing before we get into this great fight of the year. It's going to be tough to beat this fight of the year, let's be honest. But I got something for you. It's called AT&T TV Now. It's called live streaming cable. Maybe you cut the cord. Maybe you're thinking about cutting the cord. You're not quite sure. Check this out. I do have a 7-day free trial for you. No annual contract. Once you sign up for AT&T TV Now, the plans start as low as $55 a month. You can stream it anywhere. They have the cloud DVR, and right now, just for signing up, you get a free 30-day trial of HBO Max. And here's another layer. If you sign up for the Max package, that already includes HBO Max, plus a free month of Showtime, which is normally $11. So Showtime boxing fans, just a heads up. That's AT&T TV Now, live streaming cable. Okay, I'll tell you what, man. We had ourselves a phenomenal fight. It was hard to write down notes for this puppy. I mean, let's be honest. It was crazy. It was crazy, man. And right when you thought somebody had the advantage, that dude was on the mat. You know what I mean? It was everyone kissing the canvas left and right, so to speak. But just a phenomenal fight. And this is kind of the fight. It's somewhat of a crossroads fight. Not quite crossroads for your career, like, hey man, this is do or die. But it's kind of like that. Branchik had a chance, against Taylor for his first title shot. He lost, right? Then Zapata. Some people thought he beat Ramirez. And he failed there. But when I say failed, that's really not the way you put it there. These guys still 20, well now 20-2 for Branchik, but 33-2, 26 knockouts for Jose. And it's one of those, like I said, that mid-level fight that not a lot of people know these guys. And that's why I said I hope they replay this, because I really wish this was on ESPN, like after a college football game. That would have been phenomenal. But hey, I'll take it. I just think fights like this, I'm not going to call it a crossroads fight. because I think that they're still in their career, well in their prime. But it's definitely a mid-level fight that the loser doesn't have to go home, but they go down a notch, and they kind of got to work their way back up. And Zapata is in a great spot now, no doubt about it. Obviously, 140 is going to get figured out, we assume, by Taylor and Ramirez. We don't know if both of them will go up to 147. It's likely the winner will go up to 147. And even if for some strange reason that neither of them go up to 147 after that fight, whoever wins the fight, and I suppose we do have a draw there, so there could be a rematch, right? Or it could just be such a great tour rematch. My point is, more times than not, once you have it undisputed, the belts go free. So there is going to be opportunity out there, whether that's for Regis Prograis, Zapata, Branch, you can get back up. But, man, this is why I like these type of fights. And I really think, ESPN's had a nice run now. They're kind of in the middle of their run. October's really great for them. I think by far the best schedule they've had in a quarter since they started with ESPN Top Rank. But Ramirez Postal, a very competitive fight. Now, was it a great brawl? No, but it was damn good. Zapata Branchik, and now they got another one, Navarrete and Ruben Villa. So I'm really looking forward to this run. But, we dogged, well, I shouldn't say dogged, and it's not even criticizing. ESPN just 2018 was very up and down. 2019 for just ESPN broadcast, the 18 shows that they do, it was poor. It was mediocre to poor, right? It wasn't as bad as Showtime last year, but it was bad considering. Most of their best stuff was on ESPN Plus, let's be honest. And then they had, Conn and Crawford on pay-per-view. So, but, they started out okay this year, I thought, decently anyway. Not a ton of fights, but some good fights. And the bubble was hit or miss. Some of it was bad, some of it was really good. So it's just whatever, right? But we know we kind of give them a pass, especially for June, when it was so early for boxing anyway. But they have gotten their act together to close, and let's hope this keeps going. Let's get into this fight, though. I gave Baranchik, well, obviously, the first round, right? He comes out, just bombs away, overhand right, several leaping left hooks. He scores a knockdown on a right hand, and then another knockdown on the right hand, I believe, in an exchange. That's something that this fight obviously featured a ton of, and that's the exchanging. These dudes were going at it, to say the least. But considering the nightmarish start in the first round, Zapata came back pretty well in the second round. Now, this one was crazy because you could do 10-9, you could do 9-8, obviously on a 10-point we're not judges, so we don't actually have to score. We don't, if there's that must score a 10 in a round. The old way would do it would be a 9-8. This thing was nuts, though. And combinations, both of them landed combination. I think it was a left hook. I think it was it a counter left hook or a left hook? Just straight up. I can't remember. But he scored a knockdown. Or wait, is that the one? Is that the first one that should have been a knockdown and they didn't score it? Anyway, there was a counter left hand for the second knockdown. Yeah, I think that was it, actually. A counter left hand knockdown. Then some more left and right. The combination that he was throwing, both of them, but especially Zapata. Then it was a short left hand that knocked Zapata down. And like I said, it looked like he was kind of going in for the kill. So to me, it's like, okay, well, someone's got to win the round in that situation. Obviously, I'd say that's Zapata, so you give him a 10-9. But like I said, a 9-8 could work out that way. The third round, Zapata 10-8. He landed a really hard left hand and then a short hook that knocked him down. Branchik came back with his own left hooks. still a really competitive round. I thought Zapata just landed, more straight lefts down the stretch in the last part, and so he won the round. Then another 10-8 round in the fourth, overhand rights. Actually, Baranchik was landing overhand rights and some nice body shots. Zapata landed a left hook, some combinations, and then two left hooks at the 22nd mark, knocked him down 10-8. And like I said, you're trying to write this stuff down just to take notes for a podcast, but you're having to rewind it and just not, just go back a little bit after the round's done. Like, screw it, dude. I'm not worried about writing shit down. I'm watching this fight, dude. Zapata in the fifth round landed some more left hooks. Baranchik came back. Actually, was it a right hand that dropped him? I think it was a right hand. The ropes held him up. Baranchik, still was hanging in there somehow, but then a left hook just lands right on the kisser. Perfect timing. Knocked him out. Just out. And then, so it went from this great fight, right, and it still remains that, but then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, hold on, is Baranchik okay? And right away he actually kind of seemed like he had enough, like he was he was awake in a sense, right? He had enough to kind of looking like he was about to try to get up. A lot of times when you get knocked out like that, you try to get up. I remember when I was in wrestling, I tried to get up and just stumbled. And then the next time I tried to get up, my coach just pushed my chest down like, dude, stay down, And after that, it seemed like it seemed like his the situation got a little timid, not timid, but scary. It was like, now he's kind of moving slow. He's kind of not really I'm not saying he's not responding, but, the celebration, I think it's Zapata with he was getting carried on his shoulders, which, right away you're going to celebrate. But once you see a guy down, it's like, whoa, hold on. And they, calmed that down. And so there was some touch and go moments for Baranchik, and it sounds like he, has a clean slate of health overall. As far as the concussion is concerned, hopefully he heals up and takes, an extended break here, because this one was pretty scary. Like I said, right away it looked like he was just hurt, like, okay, he's out, he's hurt. But then there was moments where you're seeing like the doctors talk to him, and I don't know, he just seemed a little bit more out of it. It was kind of like it really hit him how bad he was hurt. So hopefully, we say it's a fresh, clean, or a fresh bill, like a good, clean health bill, right? But we don't really know. No, it's not like they well, I'm not going to go further into that, but hopefully he heals up and he's okay. It sounds like he's doing okay, but ultimately that type of fight can take a lot out of you. You know what I mean? But what a great, great fight. You can't, downgrade either of these guys after this fight. But Jose had a great, great win. And, he beat Pedraza. Some people thought he beat Ramirez. I would have been okay with a draw. I did think Ramirez snuck it out. But, man, Zapata is for real. And it produced the fight of the year. And I just don't, like I said, I'm not trying to jinx anything, right? But I don't see anybody touching this thing, dude. I really don't. I mean, there's just so much going on in the fight that it's really hard to beat. You know what I mean? It just really is. It's going to be really hard to beat. But anyway, what a great, great fight. I mean, that was phenomenal, no doubt about it. And we'll talk a little bit, where do they go? Like I said, I kind of already explained some of that. So, it's kind of up to what happens here. We know there's a mandatory due for Ramirez. maybe he's in the mix for some of this. Maybe they make an interim belt somewhere in here, and they allow, the undisputed to take place with Taylor and Ramirez. But he's in a good spot. He's been on TV, Zapata, for a while now, and he's made the most of it. I mean, these last 3 fights that he's been in the main event like that, it's Baranchik, Pedraza, and Ramirez, and that's in a little bit over a year, about a year's time, really, if you take the pandemic into it. So, wow, that was a great fight, dude. That was such a great fight. I mean, I was looking forward to it. I did win a little money on Zapata, but I'll tell you what, that money came the hard way. It was just a slight underdog, but going into it. But I think plus I got it 160, I think. So, and I know it shrunk down a little bit too. Let's see if. Okay, here we go. I got another one. So I literally checked this morning, and when I say this morning, I'm talking about kind of last night, like 3 in the morning. On ProBoxingOdds.com, it hadn't quite been up yet. It's a great site, by the way, because they do offer a variety of lines, not just their line or a line, but numerous lines. And now I'm seeing that Navarrete and Ruben Villa minus 225 plus 175. Here's a hint. Jump on that 175. Bookmaker has it plus 204. Sportbet has it plus 182. Otherwise, plus 162 for Bet365. So, 5 Dimes has it minus 225 Navarrete and Villa plus 175. Just saying. Okay, I'm just saying. So, anyway, definitely looking forward to that fight. We'll get into that in a short little bit. The undercard, real quick, eBay was taking on Guido Vianello. I think it's Vianello. This was a pretty sloppy fight. It had its entertaining moments. eBay really was landing at his counter rights. I think that was kind of the key. Right hands, both hands really. There was a cut on the eyelid, I think in the 2nd or 3rd round on Guido. So that didn't really help things for him. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. There was times where both of them were missing, kind of sloppy, not kind of full on. Guido once in a while would land his wild right hands. I think he hurt him with one of them. And some left hooks. I gave him the 6th and the 4th, so I had it 4-2 eBay. eBay was the busier one too. The scorecards had it 59-55 and a draw 57-57. And I had it 4-2, so 3-3 is pretty close, but I didn't think that it was a draw. I mean, a 6-round fight, it is hard to, win those clear sometimes if you don't do it like the guy or girl, I should say, only wins 1 round or something like that. But I thought eBay did enough. It was a sloppy kind of heavyweight fight. It had some entertainment value, just not a ton of it. We'll kind of, eBay's been kind of a staple on Top Rank of late because, in the summer series and stuff, he fought 2 times in that. So, good win for him. We'll just kind of keep up with his career. Gabriel Flores Jr. Took on a guy who, what the hell's the dude's name? It's like Kelzeski or something like that. He won cleanly. It was a tad overwhelming. He had his nice jab going, kind of boxing nicely on the outside. His left hook to the body, and some pretty nice uppercuts, I'd have to say, counter left hands as well. Maybe like near the end he lost some rounds. I would say, but there wasn't many rounds he lost. I'm looking at my scorecard right now. Little underwhelming though. Like I said, jabs, mostly just flashing some movement and jabs. Landed some good shots, but nothing too. Actually, I'll say this: Flores did. What round was that? He got hurt by a left hook that landed really, really hard. So that's basically what was like the excitement in the fight. It was like, whoa, what happened there? But not much after that. 127 to 73 as far as outlanding him. Outthrow him 476 to 325. He landed 29%. 50 to 20 on the body shots too. So that was impressive. But I thought he still got tested. The dude he fought was kind of. At times he was an aggressor. At times he was kind of using some angles, but I thought it gave Gabriel Flores Jr. a good test. He got, like I said, he got hit really, really hard and hurt, but he bounced back. So overall, I thought it was a good test. But did he look bad? No, that's not what I'm saying. But it was a tad underwhelming, but I kind of felt like, okay, well, this guy's a good test for you. And, hey, so what you got? Hit clean. I thought his movement and his jabs, I thought he looked pretty good. Didn't look phenomenal, but we'll see where he goes from here. But it was a good fight, though, as far as testing him and whatnot. So that about wraps it up for that card. I did watch Joseph Buatsi against Kalik, I think it was his name. He actually got hurt too, Buatsi. He got hurt, I think it was later. What round was that? But he had a swollen eye. I'm not sure if he really had a cut, but it was a nice overhand right that landed just flush. Buatsi ended up doing just enough. I think it was the 7th round TKO. The right hands were just a little too much. He kind of mixed in the left hook too, but it was mostly overhand rights. That's also, like I said, what hurt him. He's 13-0 now, 11 KOs. He looked just okay. I'm not gonna lie, he didn't really look that good. So I saw some of that fight, I saw that fight, I should say. There is another fight that I wasn't able to watch, but someone actually sent it to me just a little bit ago too, telling me that I have to see the fight. So I'm going to have to check that out a little later. Let's see. Oh, we did have Paul Kroll, who's an unbeaten prospect, against Luke Santamaria, who we just saw not long ago. By the way, the Barrentes, I think it's Barrente twins, Chavez and Angel, on the other cards, they won by decision. But Kroll was in a good test too. He was kind of working the head and the body. Had a pretty good jab, I'd say. He kind of followed it up with a few right hands. Santa Maria won the 2nd and the 3rd. For me, his left hand, especially to the body, and the left uppercut, was definitely. I don't know if Kroll was hurt or at least bothered by a body shot in that 2nd round. Both guys were using their jab pretty well. It was a pretty close round, the 3rd round. Kroll did land some short right counters. I don't know if it was good enough to, win that round, but I actually had Santa Maria up 2-1. Kroll gave him the 4th. He started kind of getting in and out with some quick combos, still attacking the head and body. There were some good exchanges too. Santa Maria had some really nice straight left hands. He just didn't really maybe do enough in that round, and Kroll had a really nice uppercut late in the round that probably stole that round. It was a very close round though, but Santa Maria came right back, the busier in a close round 5, and Kroll won the 6th for me. So after 6 rounds, it's 3-3. I thought he was busier, a few better lands. Both of them were in the southpaw stance now, in spots, not the whole time, but I remember them saying that and seeing that too. I think Kroll won the 6th round based off of a left hook with about 40 or 30 seconds left in the round. So I gave Kroll the. Oh no, I looked at the wrong round here. Santa Maria, I gave him the 7th. He just closed the round out better for me. The cleaner lands by Kroll was in the 8th round. A counter right and some uppercuts. You started to see Santa Maria once in a while miss, and that's what was kind of key when he'd lose rounds, was just him missing too much, kind of going for too big of a punch. The 9th round could have went either way. I gave the 10th to Kroll. The right hands and late counter shots as well, just a few of them, but enough, you know what I mean? So after 8, I had it 4-4 or 5-3 Santa Maria, and I think that I had it either 5-5 or 5-4-1 Kroll. 6-4 could be there too. 96-94 was a scorecard that I was good with. The 99-91 scorecards, though, were just not even on the planet. It doesn't matter who you thought would win, or not would win, but did win. Like I said, 6-4. 5-5 either guy, 6-4, 5-4-1 if you do a tie round in there, I'm cool with. I thought Kroll maybe, if I had to pick a winner, it would be Paul Kroll, but not by much. Not by much at all. And they both didn't land like a high accuracy at all. I think they were both under 20%, 81 shots in 65. So it was one of those fights where, and that's over 10 rounds. That's really not that much. 435 to 401. And if you look at the amount of punches thrown, 435, 401, that's actually pretty good in a 10-round fight. But they just didn't land a whole lot. It was one of those fights that when someone did land, you could, it was clean. It was hard, and it usually would steal a round. If you added a few more in that round, but yeah, the 99-91, it's just really bad. The whole thing of, well, the right guy won. Yeah, okay, but 99-91, especially two. We're used to seeing one card kind of out on its own or a little separated from the pack, where you're like, okay, that person just saw, they're in 3 different angles, the judges. So I'm willing to, you can look at it on TV, you can watch a fight, and when I mean look at it, I mean, watch it on TV and score it, watch it in the crowd and score it, and watch it ringside from different angles. And sometimes you don't see a land that actually lands, or you think it landed, but it actually didn't because your angle didn't allow you to see it. So to have different scorecards, of course, right? That's not a big deal. But the 99-91 and then 2 of them in that close a fight, I just, I don't know. You know what I mean? I really don't know. That was bad. Like I said, I didn't have a problem with the winner, but I did have a problem with the scorecards. In the main event, Mark Masayo, I think it's Magsayo, the Filipino, against Rigoberto Hermosillo. I think it's Hermosillo. This was a good fight. And Magsayo, he got tested in this fight. This was fun. I gave him the first round. It was a competitive round. I think it was a late right hand. It's probably the best shot of the round. Rigoberto came out. He was working the body with his left hook. And he landed a really nice right hand somewhere in the mid part of the second round. I gave him the second. The third round back to Magsayo. A fun round, though. These guys really put on a nice little show. I think the right hand and a few follow-up shots did it, but it was a close round. It was a very close round. Then the fight slowly but surely moved pretty much on the inside. And the work rate started taking over. Rigoberto, I gave him the 4th round based off that. The flashy combinations were kind of Magsayo. But to me, the dude doing the work in that one was Hermosillo. I really believe that. Then there was some separation in the 5th and 6th by Muxayo. He was just busier, landed the better shot. The 6th round was a great round. Both guys really going at it. Rigoberto was just digging to the body. Straight rights and uppercuts were the best shots, though. But that's what I loved about this fight. Sure, I had it 4-2 after 6, but Rigoberto, for me, won the 7th. You know, he closed stronger, whereas it seemed like it was kind of touch and go, in and out, quick lands that weren't doing much for Muxayo. But then I gave him the next 2 rounds, I think. Yeah, I gave him the 8th and the 9th. He was kind of in the stick and move, kind of stick, either stick and move or stick and just duck his head down, you know. Sometimes he's a little unorthodox. Sometimes it comes off smooth. There was some really fun exchanges the last minute of the 8th. And Rigoberto got hurt early after several clean shots that caught him in an exchange in the 9th round. But he did manage to close harder. I gave Hermosillo some, aggression points. He landed the flusher shots, and really most of it was the left hand. So I had it 6-4 for Muxayo. Seal. Yeah, I think it's Seal. 96-94. One of them for Rigoberto, the other for Muxayo. But then we had this 100-90. What the fuck scorecard? I mean, like I said, the right guy won, and this is what we're normally used to seeing, a fair scorecard for both of them. Both of them got a 96-94. Both of them got a 6-4. But then you turn right around and have 100-90? Like, what the hell kind of scorecard was that? I just don't. I mean, when I say I don't get it, come on. I mean, I get it, but it's just like, I don't know, man. It's really bad. I mean, this was not, a 10-0 fight or even close to it. It was a competitive fight. Like, sometimes these fights are close and they come down to a couple of rounds and all that, and that's fine. But boxing and scorecards, I know it happens in MMA as well sometimes where you're like, what just happened? But I don't know. It's like we usually have one. Like I mentioned, the other fight we had 2, which was really random. But usually we have this one that's just sitting there like it's filled out before the fight starts. And the person's just sitting there like, getting a pedicure underneath the table, filing nails, getting some paperwork done, like not even paying attention to the fight or something, And I think it was Jake Donovan who said the suspension-worthy scorecard in his article, or maybe on his tweet, and it's so true. I mean, because this is, it's not the under-the-table, something that the FBI could track. It's not, hey, here's a brown envelope or a brown bag with $100,000 in it. It's really not that. I'm not saying that wasn't the case at some point, but it's really not that with judges. It's about scoring the fight either for the house fighter or for the aggressive fighter. That's usually what it comes down to. Okay, I'm just saying the majority of these cases. That's not to say that someone who boxed on the outside, doesn't get a favorable scorecard like Mayweather and Castillo, right? I mean, we've seen that too. But generally speaking, it's it's always going to be the house fighter, most of the time, I should say. And a lot of times it is the come forward fighter. So this goes down in record. So now when you start to look around and go, to judges you approve or not approve, or however you get the judge, help out the commission, give them a nudge or whatever. There's like house judges is what it comes down to, and everybody kind of gets wined and dined. I'm not saying at your local or small level or even mid-level fight that happens left and right, but I'm not saying it happens every fight, but this is how you establish it, basically. So you get known as a house judge. And so basically, these judges get paid to do the job. They're a gig worker, right? It's not like they have them on salary. So the state, the commission. So this is what happens. It comes down to, well, you'll get the next job. So that's how they get to do the job, which is money, which is hotels. Sometimes it's a stipend. Sometimes it's a little more. So it's not like they're just picking one judge and, hey, let's wine and dine and put that person in the suite. It's the lifestyle that you get to live. And a lot of people aren't a full-time judge. They have a career, But it's that weekend lifestyle you get to live for a good chunk of your life that's what's tempting. And you don't even have to communicate this to the judges, because anybody that gets into boxing knows what a house judge is and all that type of thing. So, and when I mean get into boxing, you start with the amateurs. To be a judge, it's something I'm looking at as a retirement job, to keep me active and make a little money. But it's really not about the money. I just think it'd be a dope thing, right? But it's really just about getting to go to Vegas, getting to go to New York, getting to go to LA, getting to just do this on the weekend. And so it is a perk. It's more than just a nice perk, especially when you get on the high levels. But these type of scorecards, to me, not only scream like, Jake said, suspension, but they scream these are future house judges, is what it sounds like to me, or seems like to me. It's not the old, here, man, here's $100,000. Don't put it in a bank. Keep it under your mattress. That shit. Those days are done, dude. But anyway, well, I shouldn't say done. I'm not saying that they could. It's just so easy for the FBI to do that. I think it really just comes down to the perk. And it's not like there's a lot of, the bigger the fight, the less you have to pay sometimes the other card. You know what I mean? So it's not like they have just millions and millions of extra dollars laying around when it comes to the budget for a lot of these things. So, at one time, yeah. So anyway, and previously it was, paper bag, right? Whatever, that whole metaphor of here's a satchel of money. But it was also ran by the mob. It was also a betting thing. It was a variety of stuff. And sometimes they get right to the fighter to take the dive. They wouldn't even mess with the judge. So, but either way, I digress. It's just something, we all know something has to happen about it. I bring it up. I try not to sit there and just harp on that over and over. But when you see 190 in a tight-ass fight, it's just like in those 99s, 91s. It's like, come on, dude. Like, it's fucking ridiculous, dude. Just ridiculous. By the way, the number to dial is 646-381-4990. I see a handful of people in there. Portland, what's up? I'll get to you in just a short little bit here. 52 minutes left of the live stream. We probably won't go crazy deep, although there is a fight this weekend that I'm really looking forward to. Like I mentioned, the Showtime card got pushed back to October 24th due to visa problems with Sergey Lipinets' opponent. We'll kind of get into some of that, but there is a Showtime card this weekend, which is always at least worth checking out to see. Sometimes I see a fighter that I've barely seen in a fight. Sometimes I've never seen the fighter. Sometimes I've, it's somebody we've seen on Showbox or other outlets for a couple of times. So I'm really looking forward to it just in general. But yeah, tomorrow special Wednesday night edition of Showbox. Charles Conwell versus a Toussaint is the name. It's a 10-rounder at the 154-pound division. A lot of people making noise about Charles Conwell as an up-and-coming prospect. Brandon Lee is on the other card. David Navarro, who's a young dude, still in a 4-rounder. So, keep an eye out for that now on October 9th, of course, for the weekend schedule here. From Las Vegas in the bubble at the Grand, MGM Grand, ESPN, and ESPN Deporte. So this is not on the Plus, this is on the ESPN straight up. Emmanuel Navarrete versus Ruben Villa for a vacant WBO featherweight strap. Excuse me. Oh man, sorry. It's the belt that Shakur Stevenson. Well, of course, it's WBO and it's top rank. So Shakur Stevenson, he left that there. Joseph Adorno versus Avery Spiro is a 10-rounder. Elvis Rodriguez, who's been coming up as a prospect, he's taking on Cameron Crail in an 8-pounder. That'd be a small weight class. That's 140, 8-rounder. Lorenzo Truck Simpson is on the card as well. Something to look forward to there. So yeah, we'll kind of see how that goes. But I am looking forward to Navarrete. I think that's going to be a good fight, good style matchup. Telemundo has a card that night. Saul Sanchez and Daniel Lozano is fighting junior featherweights, 10-rounder. So that's Friday night. Telemundo. ESPN Plus from Dubai has a card as well. What else we got here? Leon Williams and Andrew Robinson on, is it Sunday? Or no, it's Saturday. Nathan Corman returns as well with Richard Larte. Oh, okay. I know him. What else? We got David Lemieux returns Saturday as well from Quebec. There's one in Germany, one in France, one in South Africa. It's safe to say that boxing is back. I think that's more than safe to say. Kind of the one that really draws the interest for me clearly is Emmanuel Navarrete going up in weight. He had the big wins, over Dogbo. So, he looked good doing that, that's for sure. He's a guy that, does show some movement on the outside. I'm not going to say that's his strength, though. It is one of these fighters that have, he's 31-1, 27 knockouts. He's got a 72-inch reach, and at 122 and now 126, that is crazy. He lost his only fight was when, in his 5th fight or 6th fight, 4-0. So that was 2012. That was a long time ago. Now the problem with him is it's really been the Dogbo. The other guys he's faced, there's just not much in there. His last guy he faced as a stay busy was a guy 13-1. So I'm not ripping him. He's only 25 years old. This is a really good test for him. But yeah, it's really been Isaac Dogbo, those back-to-back, really fun fights. I actually watched the first one not long ago. And Dogbo had beaten Jesse Magdanello, had beaten Cesar Juarez. He beat an unbeaten prospect, I remember, a chunk of years back. Chacon, too, Javier Chacon, I know he beat. I think that's about it. But, he kind of forced Dogbo into a game plan he doesn't like to do. And I think that his opponent is going to be a lot more comfortable. His opponent is Ruben Villa. He's 18-0. I'm not going to say he's been tested on the highest level as well, but as a prospect, 18 fights, he's actually fought some decent opponents. There is a big reach. I mean, 72 to 66 and a half. Now, 5'7" and 5'6" is not a big deal, but clearly the long arms favor Emmanuel Navarrete. But, he's faced a fair amount of unbeaten prospects, on the way up on Showbox. I think he is ready for this. I do believe he's ready for this fight, though. I think the style kind of fits him nicely. Just looking at Navarrete, like I said, he can move. He's decent at it. But whether it's on offense or defense, or I should say aggressive or on the back foot, his defense is suspect. I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway. I do think that Navarrete should try to keep it in the middle of the ring, throw his jab, and kind of inch forward rather than being so aggressive. The thing with the long arms, if you're not using your jab, if you're not sitting at least at the edge of the pocket using your jab, or full on moving on the outside, right, with your jab, then I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but the closer you get to somebody, and a lot of times exchanges come. That's why they come close. They're close together. That's why I mentioned the edge of that pocket, so you're still within punching range, but you can keep that jab out there, and you can keep your distance. Even in exchanges. But when you get so close, and sometimes he gets a little close, or not close, but he likes to fight on the inside and brawl, those long arms are great, but unless it's a straight punch, like a jab or a straight, right hand or whatever, it's like, okay, that's nice and everything, but a lot of times it's going to be wide shots. And so at times he can put punches together, and you think, wow, this guy, he's got power. He's a good fighter, man. He is a good fighter, and he's entertaining himself. In the fights with Dogbo, good fights. Put the back-to-back performance in, which is always impressive. But he does leave himself wide open when he punches. He usually is aggressive. He has a good work rate. Loves to throw combinations. Like I said, responsibility on defense not there. Not a whole lot on his resume. But like I mentioned, beyond Dogbo. And he gets caught not only just wide open when he punches, right, but he reaches with his shots. And the key one is something that I've seen plenty of people talk about. It's pretty easy to see when you're watching him fight, but the uppercut. The guy throws the uppercut from the other room, like he's on the outside of the ring, and he's like, "Here's my uppercut." Like, I just think that someone with timing, someone that's a little slick, that can use angles, can beat him. And the only thing, so Ruben Villa, he's kind of shifty. He's got good balance, like a good solid stance. What I mean by he's able to be shifty, he's able to use some angles, whether it's on offense or defense. He's able to take a step to the side or a couple of steps backwards, but not straight backwards, right? Duck, evade, and then still be there to be able to land the shot. So he can get inside kind of quick using angles. But like I said, he moves well on the outside as well. So I like his balance. I like his shiftiness. I think he's got a good, solid jab. His upper body defense as well. Sometimes he can be really close to a guy, and that works into that amateur pedigree. I think it was 135-7 or something like that. I think I just heard that on a video not long ago. The timing, though, and that's what I was talking about, his overall timing and southpaw stance as well. I'm gonna pick Ruben Villa by decision. It's kind of a minor upset, a little bit more of an upset than it was, like I mentioned last week. just to kind of revisit right now, Five Dimes has it minus 225 for Navarrete. And for Ruben Villa, it has plus 175. The lowest I'm seeing is plus 162. But like I mentioned, I saw the plus 204, a plus 182 as well. So otherwise, that Adorno and Sparrow is probably the other close fight this weekend. 275 plus 275 for Sparrow. That I shouldn't say that's close, but as far as what they got on here, the rest of the fights are pretty much, prospect driven. We'll see how you look. 9-1, 14-1 type underdogs. But I gave you a little hint last week with Jose Sabata winning as a buck. I think I got it at 160 or 165. Yeah, 160, I think. So I'm taking Villa. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to clearly win. I think the one thing about Ruben is, and obviously it stands out, right? It's pretty easy to see his knockout power or lack thereof. He's 18-0. Like I said, of late, the last few years, he started stepping up the competition. Really, like, I shouldn't even say the last few years. It's really been like the last year and change. And I'm actually looking at it right now because I kind of forgot his knockout thing. So, yeah, he started January 11th, 2019 against an unbeaten prospect. And, like I said, he's not out there beating killers, but he's looked good doing what he's doing. Now, here's the key. 5 knockouts. So 18-0, 5 knockouts. That's not a whole lot of knockouts. So when you get to the world level, the higher level, you wonder if he's going to have enough pop to have Navarrete respect him the whole time. And if he doesn't, he'll probably lose the fight off a work rate. But I just see Navarrete so loose with his punches, his chin sticking straight up in the air, his defense when he does try to move back. And that's the thing, Villa can pressure you with angles and great footwork. And so I just think he's going to – there's times where Dogbo was able to do some of it, and that guy's not a guy that's on the back foot at all, barely. He likes to come forward 2 inches, bomb away. So I think it's a competitive fight. I could see about a 7-5, maybe 8-4, something like that. I just see Ruben timing him and using his what I feel like is a notch up in skills in the southpaw stance. I just think we're going to see a blend of really good work, and he has that second game plan. And like I mentioned, especially in the early fights with Dogbo, I'm not saying that, Navarrete doesn't have, like, a second game plan. I just don't think he's that good at it. And I think that was kind of proven, not just in one fight, but especially in the Dogbo fight. He kind of switched it up and put Dogbo, in an uncomfortable situation that he wasn't going to be able to be his best. And so it was a great adjustment. He ultimately had to do it. But when he's on the move, sometimes he'll turn almost sideways, right? So his shoulders are kind of right with each other sideways, and he'll just move his head a little bit, or not even, go all the way sideways on the rope. But sometimes he'll, just move his head barely, like he's just like, don't hit me. Like, it's just like, dude, you're just waiting for counters. And Dogbo, who's not a counter puncher, was able to catch him. Now, he won those fights, both of them clearly, so I'm not taking credit away from him, but I've just seen enough that I think Ruben's going to be able to do it. The only thing that's keeping me from, 8-4 clean, he's going to win this fight, hands down, is the amount of pop that Ruben has. And sometimes we see guys with, not as much knockouts, but they got put in there with good vets or whatever. Sometimes it is hand injuries, whatever. But that's the only thing that's keeping me from being just overconfident. But I really believe that. I really believe that Ruben's going to win this fight, though. I think he'll win 7-5 or 8-4. I think it's going to be a good competitive fight. I just think that Villa going forward, kind of in and out using angles, and also being able to be on the back foot, being able to dodge, rapid punching, which is what you're going to have to do, but also be in range, like I talked about, that edge of that pocket to just counter him with both hands. And I think, like I said, that sharp, steady jab throughout the time, throughout the whole fight, I just think Villa's going to pull the minor upset here. But we'll see. I'm really looking forward to this fight. It's one of those fights that, I hate to call it like a mid-level fight. I just think Navarrete was just starting to prove himself at 122, and now he's at a new weight class, and Villa hasn't stepped all the way up. So it's kind of like, I think it's still a mid-level fight because whoever wins this fight now is in a great place to challenge the other featherweights. So this is a big fight. This is a big fight for these two. It's a nice fight for the weight class, and whoever wins this fight, unless it's just a great fight, competitive, maybe it's a draw, right? Who knows? But whoever wins this fight, well, they're going to win a title, vacant title, but they're going to be in pretty good shape here. So I'm looking forward to this fight, man. And like I said, it's on ESPN. I can't remember. I want to say that it's a football game on Friday night that leads into it. I can't remember. I really hope that's the case because any kind of lead-ins, count me in. Any kind of lead-ins. Let's see. Let me just check the college football schedule real quick. It should have it televised here. That would be dope to get a nice little push because neither of these guys, are all that known. So Friday night, it is. Yes, it is. So it's Louisville and Georgia Tech. Not the greatest game, but like I said, beggars can't be choosy. Hopefully it's it's got a chance to be a competitive game. Louisville's only up by 4.5 for their spread, so I shouldn't say up, but they're the favorite, but it's only 4.5. So, and I say competitive game because that'll attract viewership as it goes on, right, rather than a blowout. And Louisville isn't actually an exciting team to watch. So let's hope that that's let's hope that that's the case. That it's a close game and it has well over 1 million people watching. And boxing can take some of those fans and jump with it. You know what I mean? That's what they need. It gives it that extra little boost. Even if you have an extra 200, 300,000 people out of 1 million, that's just another layer that is already going to be watching. I know they didn't do a ton of fights on Friday night anymore, but well, what else is that night? Oh, actually, the NBA's that night too, isn't it? I think the NBA game is Friday night. Sorry, yeah, it is. Dang. That's the thing, dude. There's so much distraction, and it is at 8 o'clock too. The card's not going to stay. That game might be over by the time. And some people will be tuning in to the post-Comfort Center too, after the game and kind of the post-game. So maybe it's right in the main event, and they get a push from that. That's definitely happened. So anyway, definitely looking forward to this fight, though. Anywho, as I mentioned, that Showtime fight that got pushed back, Lipinets and Abdukakharov, I think it is. Abdukakharov. Anyway, that's a come-forward fighter against an outside guy. It's a style matchup is really good on that. I think that's a very underrated fight. But that did get moved, and it's only 2 weeks later. So that's dope too. That it's actually going to be October 24th on Showtime, and they're still going to. This is by Jake Donovan. This news, by the way, still salvage the other show, which, like he says in here, the supporting talent, which is good news. As the two bouts were in limbo, we didn't really know how long this thing would go back. But when you have Malik Hawkins getting a real test against Batista, I think it is, that dude can knock people out. And also Xavier Martinez 15-0 going against Claudio Pereira. That's, I think, the co-feature. That's a good fight. So October 24th, that gets moved, which makes sense because the fight with Tank, right? Gervonta and Leo Santa Cruz, that fight got so. And it got moved for a really good reason. The Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas, is a big ass. I think it used to hold even more people, but I do think that they calmed it down a little bit when they did the remodel. So I think it's like 66,000 or 68,000 or something like that. I can't totally remember. It's something like that, but they're going to be able to hold some fans, in the stands. So that's hold them. They're just going to hold them. I don't know why I said it like that, but so that's a good sign. It'll be the first card that has that the crowd's there. So that's pretty dope. It makes sense too. Now you don't have to go against Khabib or Habib and the UFC, even though it's a daytime. Still, it's you might as well. Sometimes it's not just the direct pay-per-view stuff, because just pushing it a week later, it's still going to be about $150 regardless, right? Within a week's time. So it's really just attention too. That is going to get more attention, that fight that weekend. So why not move it? You know what I mean? Why not move it? I think it's a great look. And the fact that, so it's October 31st on Halloween, and they're going to allow, some fan participation. So you got to love it. The tickets seem like they're doing pretty good. They have them obviously priced nicely. They're not going to go too crazy, right? And I'm assuming that it'll be a little bit more spread out, so that's why I think that they have to price these tickets correctly, because, otherwise, if you just can't be as close. I wonder if it's general admission, to be honest with you, but in spots anyway. I just think it's a really good call. So it's October 31st. On Showtime pay-per-view, so like I said, I'm really happy that they moved it. Why not? Can't hurt anything. I think it's a smart move. I really do. So then that gives Showtime an open spot, hence them going with October 24th for their card. So that's good stuff. And like I said, those undercard fights are really interesting too. I like that card, that triple header. I think everybody's kind of getting a good test in there. So yeah, there is some other fight news that we'll talk about. Speaking of moving, there was already rumors before Tank and Santa Cruz moving to the Alamo Dome. It sounds like Errol Spence and Danny Garcia are going to be fighting Cowboy Stadium. There's no exact announcement or anything like that, but if you think about it, the Cowboys have had, I think it's AT&T Cowboy Stadium, whatever. But the Cowboys have, been able to have crowd for their NFL games. So I know Kansas City, the Chiefs, they had like 17,000. The Texans had some fans. I think it was like 20,000 when the Vikings played them this last weekend. So yeah, I'd assume, you know what I mean? I'd assume that that's what they're going to do. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you try to What else we got here? We will get into, well, there's two Canelo items that we'll get to. It's funny because on what I do the show last Tuesday, right? And at the time, we didn't really know if Canelo was going to refile. There was some deadlines to put it in that same court, but clearly they were working with, the case was open. So they had to tweak some things, but as it turns out, Canelo did refile that lawsuit against Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy Promotions, and DAZN. So where there was some mediation, there was some talking back and forth about a new deal, maybe, a $20 million guarantee is what we heard, whether that's 15 to Canelo and 5 to an opponent, or that's 20 straight up. I'm not really sure. It does sound like Canelo finally did get to see the agreement between Golden Boy and DAZN that Golden Boy was not allowing Canelo to see, which was some shady ass shit. And it's funny because you don't hear many media members talking about this. I mean, it's funny because the lawsuit with Al Heyman and Golden Boy, if who came out looking worse when it comes to discovery, and clearly Golden Boy did. The judge made that, clear as day when he threw it out in the statement he made with it. It was pretty funny, but yeah, there was literally something in the contracts of Golden Boy fighters now that said they had to okay the representation, meaning management. It had to clear them. So you sign with a promoter, and as a fighter, you have to now get your manager okay through the promoter. I mean, that's ridiculous. But obviously, that was like a Al Heyman clause in there because they're trying to have their fighters not be with Al Heyman. Clearly, obviously. And that's some shady shit. So what would a promoter, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not naive. What would a promoter and a manager, be so closely tied? We know that exists. I'm not saying that. But, it's just crazy that was actually in there. And you could barely see the media really exploiting it, I understand some of the ring magazine folks not doing it as much. I still think that they should, they should say something more about it. But it's some shady shit not to show your client, your number one guy in Canelo, a hidden agreement that you had that has to do with him. And DAZN also got to see, it sounds like, Canelo's agreement with Golden Boy, so they could see that, hey, wait a second, we thought we had some, basically we thought we approved opponents. And Golden Boy and Canelo had an agreement saying ultimately, within reason, within that, not the speculation, but the detail, the stipulation is what I meant, within reason. So it's not like some kind of random opponent, Speaking of random opponents, though, nice little segue. There's another extension, guys, for Canelo and Yildirim, the purse bid, given a final 15-day extension. This came out today. Jake Donovan on the news here. Another 2 weeks have been granted for Canelo. Understanding the current situation, the WBC franchise champion, Alvarez, the WBC in good faith, extends 15 days for a final time to purse offer ceremony with Alvarez, blah, blah, blah. What's he say here? There's another quote here that kind of cleans up. Along came Alvarez. He jumped in. Yeah. We know that part. Here we go. The WBC will inquire the status, basically. It will make a final determination after October 21st, which is the deadline, the 15-day, the new deadline. So if nothing, Obviously, the legal ramifications is going to play into this with Canelo and how long he's going to be out. But like it says, they'll definitely, once that period's over, they'll make a determination, which will probably be Benavidez and Yildirim, because the WBC obviously stripped David Benavidez for missing weight, and then they ranked him at 175. He has since put in a petition saying, hey, I want to be put back in the 68 ranking. So I'm assuming it will be Benavidez and Yildirim, which is the fight we were going to get anyway. So yeah, that's just a little side note in there, nothing too crazy. We'll get into some of that Canelo stuff in just a little bit. There is some other, news and notes that I want to get to. The Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez Blood, Sweat, and Tears hype show, the shoulder programming, played, I think, on Sunday kind of early evening. They're going to play another one, part 1 and part 2, back to back in the same slot, I believe, next Sunday or this coming Sunday. And I thought it was well done. It was like a half-hour special. Thought it was good. They definitely. I mean, they gave equal time, it felt like, but to me it seemed like they were focusing a little bit even more on Teofimo, which I think is a smart thing to do. But both of them showed their personalities. Both of them, I thought it was well done, and more importantly, to have the shoulder programming so far out. I mean, sure, it's not a month or whatever, but hey, it is what it is. This fight got done not even that long ago, right? So the fact that it's not just fight week when they're doing that, they're doing, they started the commercial roll even, so that's going to put it almost 2 weeks before the fight. So that's something that we haven't seen at ESPN really. The Lomachenko Rigondeaux, you could say I don't know how far that was in advance. Not that far, it seems. They definitely pushed it, though, when they had, that was right after the Heisman. They've pushed some of the other Heisman shows, the post shows after that events, I should say. The biggest one they pushed was the Pacquiao Horn, obviously, the one that kicked off the deal. And it's pretty crazy. That was 2017 already. Was that 2017 or 18? It was 17. Yeah, crazy. Anyway, it's just nice to have shoulder programming. I've seen a commercial just yesterday, and there's going to be more shoulder programming. I hope to see even more commercials, and to really build this fight. And like I said, it is going to have a lead-in. We just don't know exactly what it's going to be just yet. But they are facing some heavy competition that night with Georgia and Auburn on CBS, but we'll see when the fight actually starts, because that game could be done. I'm assuming it will be done by the main event. I hope anyway. So, anywho, it was just good to see. They're really going for it, and that's something we see with Fox. Once their event's done, they're on to the next one, and especially if it's a big main event fight or a big, pay-per-view, they start pushing it a month, sometimes 2 months out. So it's nice to see, and kudos for ESPN1 to step up and put a couple $100,000, to make this fight for Teofimo to get the fight across the line. And now they're like, hey, let's try to get a nice, healthy rating. Why not? Why not try to do that? So that's always good. Speaking of a big fight, Wilder and Fury 3 is on the move. It was tentatively scheduled for December 19th. However, now that college football is going to be all the way back, 3 out of the Power 5 leagues have already started, the SEC being the biggest of them. But in a couple of weeks, October 23rd and 24th, that Friday and Saturday, the Big Ten returns, which is the second biggest conference. The SEC and the Big Ten basically run football as far as from a money standpoint. And then the Pac-12 returns not long after that. Long story short, this year, usually what would be the first week in December is when the conference finals would take place, and those are pretty important. So that would normally be this year it would have been the 5th, but it's December 19th now. They had to kind of tweak their schedules, obviously, because you wanted to have an extra week or two. They cut some games off their normal schedule, right? I think the SEC's 10, ACC's 10, Big 10 is 8, really 9 no, because everyone's going to play that December 19th. So the point is, the amount of conference finals that day, Friday and Saturday, and NFL games that day too. There's a ton of them. So it's all mixed into one. And that's what I'm saying. Even on December 15th, you have the NFL. They normally do Saturdays in later December. But the college football is just going to have to deal with it. And you can see when you have the college football, sure, it's been going somewhat, right? It's starting to get going anyway. They finally had a big rating the other day. Had some decent ratings with some Miami games, but nothing that stood way out. That Auburn, Georgia was a big, I think that got like 4 million something viewers. But so you have those on Saturdays. The NFL is just back, so like I said, then you have the NBA playoffs and now the finals, and the MLB baseball playoffs, and it's hurting both sides. You can see what it's doing to the NBA finals. So when we look at these boxing ratings, when you look at even these pay-per-view numbers, I've only heard a couple of sources that have the Charlo brothers at about 120, anywhere from 100 to 150 thousand, pay-per-views, which I thought it would be somewhere in that range. So that's no surprise. Some of these TV ratings that we see for boxing this summer and even in August and September, a lot of people are like, "Oh, boxing's dead." It's like, dude, a lot of people are getting affected right now. The demographic, the 18 to 48 to 18 to 34, the NBA is still doing good in that, but their ratings are down. MLB's down, and these are playoff. This is what, wasn't anticipated to happen. So I think some of that boxing's dead based off a couple of ratings. It's just goofy. And that the television networks see it. If we see it, why wouldn't the networks see it? So yeah, it is what it is. But I think it's smart to move that fight. But here's a little funky thing, right? And the source is funky too. The Sun in the UK, this is kind of weird too, but it says Christmas, right? So maybe they are thinking, screw it. And I did actually hear this originally. I heard that this is going to be December 26th. I know Fox has a card December 26th, and maybe they'd be willing to put their prelims on Fox. I remember how they did FS1, I think, in ESPN. Maybe they'd be willing to do that date. I'm not quite sure, but maybe it will get bumped to Christmas that Saturday. And remember, when I say Christmas Saturday, that's a day after Christmas. So you have Christmas Eve, you have Christmas Day, and then the 26th is actually, it's actually Boxing Day. Like, I don't know if it's international, is that in the UK too? I know Canada says it has that, the Boxing Day. But anyway, the reason why I mentioned this, because it says Tyson Fury set for December pay-per-view in the UK after BT Sport cough up to put on Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce in November. November 28th, by the way, Joyce and Dubois, they're going to fight. It sounds like that's a done deal. It'll be on pay-per-view in the O2 Arena. Actually, I don't know if it's going to be the O2 Arena. No, what am I saying? No, they're going to do it behind closed doors could still be there behind closed doors, I suppose. But this says that is likely to mean the WBC heavyweight king Fury will now fight in the UK behind closed doors for his pay-per-view homecoming. Promoter Frank Warren appeared to aim a dig at rival Eddie Hearn, Sky Sports, who are set for a 3 pay-per-view show involving Chisora, Dillian White, and Joshua in a row like that. This is about keeping boxing alive and relevant at a tough time, doing something for the fans. We have moved heaven and earth to put this on BT Sports subscription fight night instead. Okay, so that's pretty dope. That's a good mid-level heavyweight fight with 2 prospects, one more of a vet prospect because of his age. But that's going to be straight up. But now they're saying Tyson Fury might slide in, to that and fight that night. So, I don't know if, and he said in the UK, so UK pay-per-view like in prime time, are they going to let Fury fight in December against somebody and then just to stay busy because they're not able to find this date where they have crowds? I'm not really sure. And like I said, the source is funky, to say the least. I would not go off of that source. It's not some kind of, I'm not saying it's not possible, but that source has been all over the place. Like I said, we'll get to some Canelo news. I see some folks coming in to try to listen to the last part of the show. There's 9 minutes left of the live stream. You can dial 646-381-4990. That's 646-381-4990 to listen to the rest of the show. If you're listening to it in the browser right now, the shit's going to stop in about 9 minutes. So you just call the number, you listen to it, yada, yada, yada. Most people listen to it on archive, but just letting people know. I see some folks popping in here to hear the last chunk of the show. We got some fight news. We are going to talk about Canelo refiling lawsuit just a little bit. And, of course, the boxing Twitter segment, which is always full of fun items to scratch your head at, basically. Good old boxing Twitter, right? A lot of good information, a lot of great opinions, but just a lot of garbage, too, right? In the media, sometimes some of the tweets that they have is just funny. But anyway, speaking of Wilder, Deontay Wilder, there's been a lot of in-between on Mark Breland. We first heard, he's going to be out. Then we heard that decision's not made yet. And there really hadn't been an official word. It sounds like Shelley Finkel now, who actually represented Breland way back in the day, came out and said, nope, it's a wrap. Basically, it's not happening. So Mark Breland is out of the corner of Deontay Wilder. Wilder clearly had an issue with Breland for throwing in the towel. As a fighter, you kind of understand some of that from a fighter's point of view. We hear it all the time. You don't want to be, don't throw the towel in on me. And, if I'm standing, don't do it. Don't throw the towel. And we've heard this time and time again. But the fact that Breland did it shows you that he was in the corner for the right reasons. There's some just stubborn trainers. Sometimes we see the father-son stuff that this runs into. Sometimes we see a father-son situation where they throw in the towel too early because they see their kid taking punishment. Sometimes they'll just hold off and take it too personal and say, well, that's my mentality as a father. I taught this to my son. So it's not a big surprise, but and I'll say this. Obviously, Breland, did the right move there. I mean, clearly he did the right move. Wilder can take some shots, dude. We've seen him hurt. He was hitting the side of the head, hitting the back of the head, hitting the ear, hit with some really good shots that were just straight up. And he was hurt. His legs were gone. So he's got a ton of heart, But honestly, to take that beating for the next couple of rounds or the rest of the fight, whatever it would have been, that didn't need to happen. So Breland was 100% in the right. I'll say this though about Breland, as far as leaving the camp, the only thing I have to say about there's a couple of things here. One, it's nice to know you have people in the corner that really give a shit about you. So that's when you take one of those guys out of your camp, you never know what that's going to produce for the person you bring in. And we heard he brought in a guy who he fought a while ago, Scott, right? And also, it's kind of shaky because this guy, not too long ago, put out a cryptic tweet. It was like, wait a second, what? He's talking about, I'm not a snake in the grass. I didn't spike your drink, but I know who did. Like some weird cryptic thing. And maybe because he did that and put that out there, and I'm talking about, when I say Scott, I'm talking about Malik Scott. It seemed like he was not wanting to fight anymore, or whatever happened at the end of the Wilder Scott fight. And he's been a sparring partner, and he's been in the camp as far as an important piece of the camp to an extent, because they've been friends. But it was kind of a weird tweet or a subtweet that he put out not long ago. But then now it's rumored that he's in the camp. But as far as Breland goes, before anything happened in the last fight, there were plenty of people that didn't necessarily think he was a great trainer. Some people would say, well, look at Wilder, he hasn't really developed. Some people will say, okay, he's got a good jab when he uses it, but he doesn't use the jab like a Breland, right? And a trainer can only do so much, obviously. And same for Jay, his trainer. Like, how many guys has he brought to the world championship level and groomed? So some people say, you can find a better, and I'm talking about Breland and Jay Diaz, not just trying to separate Breland there. Plenty of people said, you're not really getting a changed product anyway, so that corner combination hasn't really paid off as far as developing him massively. Now, some people don't remember what the gangly, long, lanky, very, at times uncoordinated, like they had to fill his body too, like he was skinny, gangly. Like a lot of people don't remember what he looked like as a pro early. I remember that night where they had a bunch of amateurs on that were fresh out of the Olympics and who had turned pro, and I remember looking at Wilder like, wow, dude, they're really going to need to do some work with him. So I'm not trying to say these two trainers haven't done something with him, because they have. I don't think that'd be fair. I think they kind of got maybe too much criticism before this, and I'm not talking about having anything to do with throwing the towel in. As far as just trainers and developing Wilder, and then who else have they developed at a high level? And so I saw plenty of boxing experts, media members, other folks in the industry say, his corner hasn't really done a whole lot. Now I think from almost scratch to where he is, they've done a pretty good job with him. I think that, like I said, if you see his early fights compared to his fights now, he's better, but I can see the point that they were trying to make overall that, Jay doesn't have a pedigree. I mean, not to say he hasn't been in the sport in a long, for a while. He has, and same with Breland, obviously, he really has. But it's not like Breland has 2 or 3 or 4 other guys, or Jay for that matter, or that combination has a few other champions and some former champs go to him and he's working their way and they got it, you know what I mean? So I think you can say, hey, make a change, but the Breland thing, if your change is just being disappointed at Breland for throwing the towel, I think that's wrong. You know, I think that is wrong. I think that doesn't really line up. So that sounds like that's official. And the news came from Ronnie Shields in a boxing voice, shouts out to Ness and Company, during an interview. And then it basically got followed up, and Shelly Finkel came out with a quote saying, yeah, that's it. So, you know, do I think he needed to change trainers in general? Yeah. I think that a brand new camp, brand new set of eyes, I don't think that would hurt him at all. I think that would work. It sounds like he's working out in Miami right now. I know he was going to get some pointers, whether it's working out, whether it's chopping trees, right? Like the George Foreman workout. I know he was going to go to Houston and work out with them. I don't know when he did that or if he's still planning on doing that or he already did that. I don't know, but I know he did get some advice from Foreman, and I remember hearing Wilder saying he was going to take that advice. So, but the Malik Scott thing is strange. I mean, sure, he probably feels like it is, someone in his ear he can trust, but like I said, it was just kind of a shady, and maybe this quote-unquote, I know who poisons your drink. Maybe that's, like I said, what brought him even closer. And Malik Scott told him this theory. Whatever. And then he trusts him even more. Like, thank you. I don't really know. It's real shaky. But either way, we'll see what happens in that rematch. If Wilder can look like he looked in the first two rounds where he's actually landing punches and shook Fury up, actually. Fury admitted it when he went over to him after the fight and said, wow, you really got me. I was hurt. But after those first two rounds, it was a wrap, dude. It was a one-sided fight. So we will get to a little bit more fight news in our boxing Twitter segment to close the show. Real quick, though, and this is about a week ago, it says right here, 10:41 Eastern Time. So it would have been, not long after I stopped the show last week and thinking the Canelo stuff is still in between. He could refile the lawsuit. We don't know if he's going to. There were some deadlines that passed, so we didn't quite know, but as we do know now, that he refiles the breach of contract suit against the Zone Golden Boy and Oscar De La Hoya. We'll see. We'll see how that goes because, his first suit was dismissed by the U.S. District Court in Central District of California. The case will now be presided by the Honorable Michael P. Linfeld, who was first appointed to Superior Court in 2003. By the way, this is Jake Donovan again. So basically, this is some quotes from it, the behavior and breaches of Golden Boy promotion, and it says cannot simply be casted on DAZN's failure to pay its licensing fees. In the Alvarez contract, Golden Boy Promotions and De La Hoya personally committed to making the guaranteed payments after DAZN announced it would breach the obligations to pay the licensing fee. Alvarez accommodated Golden Boy with several weeks to find an alternative means of broadcasting his bouts and paying his guarantee. And that's something that we talked about a couple of weeks ago as well. That, okay, so they're not going to pay. I'm trying to see the agreement you have, and I'm speaking in Canelo's side. Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy Promotions, right? That's his promotions. And DAZN, they made an agreement without letting me know. And when I tried to find out what that agreement was, he was stymied. He was not allowed to see it. Like I said at the top of the show, that's some shady ass shit. And this is boxing, and that's shit. So I guess there were, he filed that lawsuit. He put basically like so many different LLCs. There's so many. It's hard to, an LLC and a corporate company, and there's a lot of, yellow tape there. But it was really like a wake-up call. And supposedly they had some sort of mediation where they were trying to work out a deal for a new guarantee that DAZN was a lot more comfortable with. And Golden Boy did finally allow him to see the agreement. And it sounds like I mentioned, DAZN was allowed to see the contract, so they know the agreement that Canelo and Oscar made. And obviously Oscar, allegedly, it sounds like Oscar is in the middle of this. And ultimately Oscar and Golden Boy Promotions, that layer, is the one that's the sheistiest out of all these folks because they misled both sides. And he did give Golden Boy, like I mentioned, some time to go, okay, well, then go get it from another broadcaster. And that's why, and we talked about this a few weeks ago with John on, who's a lawyer, we talked about, okay, well, that makes sense that they'd be trying to do this Yildirim purse bid because someone's got money, Showtime, and Al Heyman has this money that they're willing to give him so he can, it's basically proof that, listen, DAZN and Golden Boy are holding my career up. I have $20 million sitting right here that they're willing to pay me to fight this fight. So it basically said, hey, my promoter didn't go out to a separate network and try to get me the money they owe me and the fight they owe me. I went out and got it myself. So it's kind of like proof that they're holding me back. And in the U.S., the right to earn money is something that kind of stands out and can sometimes hold up in court to the fact that there may be a lot of litigation, right, between these two. And this whole discovery, this whole case may stretch out for a year or two. It could get settled as well. But in the meantime, can I keep fighting? That's going to be key. But here it says, moreover, Golden Boy Promotions failed to present a single plan thereafter. Moreover, Golden Boy Promotions have breached the Alvarez contract by violating the confidential provision and leaking the contract detail to the media for purposes of bringing additional attention and prestige to Golden Boy. And this is something that when lawsuits get filed, you start to find out more information. And this shit blows my mind. So they weren't supposed to, there was not supposed to be any information. This is a secret, confidential thing where you are not supposed to put out how much money this contract was worth officially. There would be sources, there would be, reports and all that. No doubt about it. They would probably get close to the number, right? That's clear. He fights in Vegas a lot, so now the Nevada State Commission doesn't allow you to see the fighter purse any longer, which is kind of shaky right there anyway. But it's kind of crazy. So someone allegedly leaked this shit, right? And of course that brought prestige to Golden Boy Promotions and Oscar because it's like, look what they did as a company and as a brand and as Oscar De La Hoya. Look at the contract they secured for Canelo. Look at the price tag, So obviously he still has the claiming of damage. The claiming is no less than $280 million. It's basically the remaining balance of the contract. And obviously punitive damages, attorney fees, cost of lawsuit, yada, yada, yada. So it's right there. He has 8 fights left. We'll see, as far as what actually comes of this. I feel like it's going to be a settlement. I'm not saying they're going to pay $280, but I kind of feel like it's a settlement. I do feel like ultimately he'll get a little money, but also because if this shit, and I say alleged, but if this shit's true about Golden Boy and Oscar in the middle, lying to both sides, they're on the hook in some form or fashion. And I'm not saying he'll get 280. I actually don't think that'll be the case. But in the same breath, I do think he'll be released out of his contract at some point. I'm not saying he's going to be free to fight in the next couple of months. I'm not saying that a judge would clearly rule on that, because they could probably appeal that too, and they could counter. I don't know all the details. We will talk to John and Jake Donovan soon about that stuff too. But I'll tell you what, man. There was some talk in the media that they were getting close to being able to figure this out, and there's a lot of shady shit, and I don't know if you'd want to really be involved with these folks anymore. The courts of the state of California have personally jurisdiction over each defendant, because each has residence in or conducted business in California related to the events and circumstances. It says, 1, Golden Boy Promotions is based in Los Angeles County. 2, Oscar De La Hoya resides in Los Angeles. DAZN has employees within Los Angeles County, conducts business there too, and broadcasts to customers within Los Angeles County. So yeah, that's basically it. We're not going to really know exactly, the whole thing. The contract in Alvarez's possession does not specifically DAZN. Okay, DAZN's final authority on accepting or rejecting any agreed upon opponent. And it says, unbeknownst to the boxer, there was that contract between Golden Boy Promotion and that's the thing. It says Golden Boy Promotion had already surrendered approval rights for his opponents to DAZN. Alvarez later came to be aware of DAZN had been informed by Golden Boy Promotion that his contract contained the requirement for additional compensation for Mr. Golovkin. That was another thing too, because we heard about that. Hey, this is what it says. Additionally, the lawsuit raises the point of DAZN was unaware the Alvarez contract carved out specific potential opponents, including, Gennady Golovkin, as required as a guaranteed payment of no less than 35 to be separately negotiated between Alvarez and Golden Boy. So that's where we heard he was getting more money for that fight. We did hear that the guarantee would be the minimum guarantee, that they were trying to work out a new deal, right? But there'd be potential to make more money for certain opponents, and they widened the approval, the premier opponent list, which needed to be widened if you look at what they were talking about. So we're gonna find out. Something's got to give on this, though. I really do feel like that. I'm not gonna, act like I know exactly what's going on 100%. That's for sure. By the way, Robert Talarek, this one was from Poland. I guess this is the fight that I hadn't seen yet. It got taken down at one of the spots that I normally can find it, but also there was one up that was just shaky as hell. So help me out with that, by the way. It sounds like it was a pretty damn good fight. So, what else we got here? I think that about wraps up that type of news. We will kind of just go through some of this other fight news. News on Canelo is what I meant by the lawsuit. We'll kind of go over boxing Twitter and current fight news, like we do, just close out the show per normal. So this is something that was announced yesterday, I believe. Joseph Parker will face Junior Fa in New Zealand on December 11th. That's something that we've seen them working on here. Albuquerque WBO Super Bantamweight champ Angela Leo, mandatory bout versus Stephen Fulton could be moved to the December 12th card, headlined by Ubali and Donaire, or be held early 2021. Whether it's early 2021 in a main event or the co-feature, dude, that would be a hell of a doubleheader to have Ubali and Donaire and have Leo and Fulton. That would be bomb, dude. That would be a great card. Either way, I'm happy. We're still waiting for an official announcement on that November 14th on ESPN. Crawford, Kell Brook, but this is from Coppinger from the Athletic. Crawford will earn upward of $4 million, and it looks like Kell Brook will earn around $2 million for that fight, but there's still not a 100% done deal. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. So that leak to the media, though, that really threw me off. The Golden Boy leak. That was part of the contract that they weren't even supposed to talk about that. I just saw a tweet actually about that. Esparza and Urbina. It's a nice fight, women's fight, WBC. I think a title eliminator. That's going to be October 30th, so it's coming up quick. At Fantasy Springs Casino. That's a really, really legit fight there. I really like that. Eddie Hearn, this is from IFL TV News. Eddie Hearn has named 4 possible opponents for Billy Joe Saunders on November 28th. Martin Murray, Rocky Fielding, John Ryder, and Fedor Chudinov. And his quotes, Eddie Hearn, was, "People are always going to moan, so I'd rather a Brit got the opportunity." But wasn't Eddie Hearn the one that said if Canelo doesn't choose Callum Smith or Billy Joe Saunders, that those two are just going to fight? Now, my guess is they're both going to take an in-between fight and then fight and try to get it in front of a crowd. But that's what he said. But he's a promoter, so promoters talk a lot. But John Ryder, I think Callum Smith and John Ryder should fight again if they're not going to fight Billy Joe Saunders. But that's what he kept telling us. And I was a little surprised at that, only because, it was kind of like, well, they've been out of the ring for a while. I was just anticipating, maybe on the same bill, maybe not, but both of them get a fight in, get a camp, get a fight in, then, it increases the chance that you can actually, have some crowd in there, and then you get sharper fighters, but no big deal here. This was from BoxingScene.com. The launch of the Zone UK is reportedly set to happen in the next couple of months. It's claimed that Daniel Jacobs and Gabriel Rosado, which agreed, by the way, to November 25th, Jacobs and Rosado 27th, and will be broadcast by the Zone in UK. The Zone initially wanted John Ryder as the UK opponent, which makes sense. So that's their launch. They don't have Canelo, but that's their launch. It's too bad they can't. Well, I suppose they couldn't launch with that. Yeah, they can't launch with Callum Smith. That Billy Joe Saunders, because they're Matchroom fighters, and Matchroom has a deal with Sky. So I'm sure that was the reason why. But Daniel Jacobs, that's a little bit of news. Daniel Jacobs and Rosado, November 27th. Someone actually just texted me. This is Bob Arum. We're moving off of December 19th because there's 5 conference championships games that day and night, plus 2 NFL games. So yeah, I actually talked about that early on the show. So that makes a lot of sense. There's no point, in doing that. But yeah, Jacobs and Rosado, Gabe doesn't really. I don't know. I know they have Twitter beef, and it's stylistically it'll be a fun fight to watch, but I just feel like Jacobs already had the Chavez fight, so he lost to Canelo. Okay, no big deal. And then he got the Chavez fight. So now it's like, all right, let me fight a top guy now. So that kind of sucks, but it is what it is, you know. No big deal. When was that fight? Was that to close out the year last year? When did he fight last? Because that wasn't in February, was it? Why did I think it was in February? I don't think it was. Let me double check here. Okay, the reason why I thought it was last year is because it was December 20th, so that's pretty close. Chavez, but we won't get into that. Gabe fought on the same night, so they both fought at the same time, yada, yada, yada. So, you know, like I said, stylistically, it could be fun. I think it will be, but it's kind of like I don't know. Is going from Chavez Jr. to Gabe a lateral step? It's tough to say. Both Chavez and Gabe are so far out of their prime. Like I said, stylistically, sure, it'll be fun, but I don't know. I believe that this is Daniel Jacobs' last fight of his DAZN and Matchroom USA contract. So maybe he's doing it like, hey, you got to give me a fight. So sometime this year, so I'm fighting somebody. But you never know. There could be an option, 3 fights and an option on top of that. So we'll see. We'll see. Just real quick, the Pacquiao stuff and the McGregor stuff. This is Pacquiao. He basically said, at the present time, I do not have an existing management contract with that company that he signed with that was represented by Conor McGregor. I have formed my own company, Pac Sports and Entertainment. You can tell he's with Heyman now. And maybe he's not. Maybe that contract's up now. And I am more than willing to give the fans what they want. But it's called, I'm going to promote some of it too. And this is Iola talking about Pacquiao. An exciting fight with Notorious under terms of the conditions where I co-promote. Yada, yada, yada. It's the same thing. Okay. So that's something there. This is Dan Raphael per source. Devin Haney and Gamboa signed. This is last week, Wednesday night. Done deal, November 7th. Both of those fights that I just mentioned, the Gabe and Danny and then this one, are going to be likely at the Seminole Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida. So Haney and Gamboa is official. And, you look back and you say Gary Russell Jr. had $1.5 million. He said he'd take it. Some days went by. I don't know, the first contract was a little bit different than the way they said it online. Well, first of all, it was an agreement and it was a contract because you sign it, but it wasn't really a contract that signs the fight. That means the fight's on. Because both Bill Haney, Devin's dad, and Russell both said that their first, I think it was $2 million, the first offer did actually get denied by DAZN. So I did give Gary some leeway in there that if they just signed, now they send you over something that's like more of a promotional thing that, hey, just sign here and say you'll fight me at 1.5. We'll take it to DAZN and we'll get it figured out. So there was no date, there was no for sure thing. And the other one had been denied. This is what both sides say. So I was willing to wait on that because it's like, all right, well, it does. I understand there's no rematch clause in that thing he wanted to send for either guy, but a rematch clause was in there, but it was Gary did say, hey, if I win, I want to be able to control the rematch, which is fair too. So it did feel like at the start it didn't feel like a one-off at all. They were trying to add some fights, which I don't blame Eddie for doing that, right? That's what you try to do. But then he did say, I'm good. Now Now they denied the $2 million, but they were on board for the 1.5. And once we got word that Eddie said, "Yup, I'm on board," so we knew it was going to happen. Then it's like, okay, what now? Okay, cool. I was willing to give you some leeway. I was willing to give both leeway to let it, that's what negotiations are, right? But then all of a sudden, Gary took a little time off, and then he got in and said, I worked this contract. I got this contract now, and put some hard work into it. He started reading it on the camera on the Instagram, and he's like, what's it say here? It says, and it was kind of funny. So he said, I'm going to send this over. And supposedly, Bill Haney hadn't got it. Now, I don't know if that's facts or not, or if it's too late anyway, but that's what Bill Haney said, that they didn't get anything back after that day. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. Then, Gary took a little bit of time off, came back in his car, and was like, I don't know what's going on. I still want to try to make this fight, but maybe we can make it next or whatever. I don't know. But it's just not a good look. If you said you're going to do it for 1.5, I get all the details, like you wanted to be figured out. Obviously, I think it's worth mentioning that one of the sticking points was probably the November 7th date, because that seemed like that was the date that he had. And I'm saying he, Devin Haney through Giselle, that was his date. And I don't know how much, wiggle room he had with that. So they were trying to get Gary in the ring. They know Gary stays in shape. I'm not trying to say they were trying to catch Gary off guard. That's not what I'm saying. But I can understand, because Gary did say, hey, dude, the November 7th date's off. I need 8 weeks. I need a full camp. So you can't fault them there. But, when you go on Instagram Live and you say all this shit and you talk that talk, and then you get a contract sent to you, and there's only rematches. There's no more options in it. Like I said, I understand Eddie and that side tried to do that, but I also understand Russell's side's like, dude, I don't want to. This is a one-off deal here. So I get the details, but then days went by. And I really wish Gary Russell Jr. said, listen, it's November 7th. That's the date they're working with, and I can't make that date. We're not even signed the contract yet. It's a month away or something like that. I really wish he'd come out, and I think ultimately that's probably what he's going to say, but he should just make it clear, like, I really want this fight next. It just didn't work out. I'm going to get a fight. He said he had a backup plan. The rumored backup plan was Javier Fortuna at 135, so it was cool that he went up in weight, and maybe ultimately losing to Javier Fortuna would not be good for him at that weight. He could always go back down, of course, but if you're trying to establish yourself at a weight and you lose to Fortuna, there's other fighters above him. That's what I'm saying. Now, if you get to 135, you feel comfortable, then you fight him sometime first quarter or early second quarter next year. Now we're talking. So I'm assuming that's kind of the lines he'll use, or he should. I think he already should have said, hey, this November 7th ain't going to happen. And it's not like DAZN is just giving out dates left and right. You can tell they've been, these are the fights. I'm talking about Matchroom USA DAZN too, not just DAZN. DAZN is still giving us, Sky Sports stuff. They once they got going, they've been giving us, Sky Sports stuff, no doubt. But, when you look at this, I'm assuming November 7th was his date. Now, could he have gotten it pushed to December? I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But there's a lot of fights going on in late November and early December for Matchroom. Now, whether that, and Matchroom Sky Sports, whether that means we get them all here on DAZN, I'd assume so, but we'll find out. So, Gary Russell Jr., you had to kind of know that November 7th date was out there. It just kind of, I'm not trying to blame you like, dog, you dropped the ball, you ducked them. I'm not saying that, because there is some details in here that you have to, the devil is in the detail, right? You have to be fair about this stuff. You have to look at it. But on the surface and on boxing Twitter, the shit looks like a duck. It does. It looks like it because he was talking all that shit, and then it just didn't happen. You know. And you should have really stuck to November 7th. I know he mentioned it, that I'm going to need 8 weeks, and that is legit. You can't sit there and, rip him for that. Want an 8-week camp for a championship fight. Come on, dude, of course. But we'll see. We will see. If he wants to go up and wait, though, a tester fight's not the worst thing. You just better win that motherfucker, right? But I'll tell you what, it does look bad. It does look bad. Now on Twitter, he ducked him. And so, I've been hard on him to an extent because he called out a bunch of fighters that whether it was realistically going to happen or not, or calling out fighters when they had tough fights, like, oh, he's ducking me. Well, if Leo's ducking you, then why is he fighting Gervonta? Tough to fight. At a higher weight class, might be tougher. Now, I know stylistically it's two different fights, and there's times where I think he walked it back a little bit, but there was even times where Loma and Teofimo are ducking me. Dude, they're fighting each other, dog. They're not ducking you. First of all, Loma already beat you, dude. I don't care what you say. You got beat, dude. Clean. Not to say you couldn't show up in the rematch or whatever. I don't know. Maybe you could, but you didn't that day when you had him in the ring. And I know he said he dehydrated, whatever. My thing is, in this spring, in I guess early summer, when it was more topical because we didn't have any fights to talk about, I did have a rant section on a lot of these youngsters. Shakur Stevenson, Ryan Garcia, some of these guys were Devin Haney, by the way. Some of these guys that were ripping other belts when they got emailed their belt. I was calling them out, not calling them out, just saying, hey, calm the fuck down, dude. You know what I mean? Like, because some of these guys will say, like Shakur Stevenson will say, oh, Frampton or not Frampton, but Warrington, so I can get a fight in, but now he wants a fight to, it's like, well, so you can get a stay busy fight in before you fight him, but he can't, And so I wish he'd just say that there's not enough money in the fight rather than saying something that's not 100% true. And like I said, Gary Russell Jr., it just looks like you ducked him, dude. You had 1.5 in your hand. You signed the fucking contract. You get this shit figured out. Not even to say it was 100% realistic for November 7th, though. But I'm saying, looks like on the surface, it doesn't look good for you because you were talking a gang of shit and then you didn't sign the contract. Now, it could be legit. Maybe that is the next fight. It could be. I don't think people are at 135 going to just give Haney all these opportunities. I really don't. For now anyway. So we'll see. Eddie Hearn also announced a all-women's card, triple header. Katie Taylor against Gutierrez. Not totally familiar with her. Harper and Thanduras, I think it is. Yeah, Thanduras. And Bridges in Ball. That'll be November 14th live. Oh, it says DAZN USA. Sky Sports and DAZN. Okay. I read it wrong. So, big shouts out to the ladies there. That's a nice little triple header. Gotta love that. All right, what else we got here for boxing Twitter and news? We'll get into some boxing Twitter. Inoue set to make $1 million to fight a bum. By the way, Maloney's not a bum. Lopez 1.5 for Loma. Brook 1.5. We now know that's around 2 for Bud. I'm not surprised. No one wants to fight top-ranked fighters. They overpay their fighters to fight bums, yet severely underpay the other side when they gonna fight a contender or a big name. Even better, Biev only got 1.5 mil for the biggest fight of his life. But it's all in reference. Inoue also has an MGM deal, so that has to play into it somewhat. I'd have to say they have. He owes 2 fights a year to the MGM Grand. normally going. Obviously it's not necessarily something that he can do just yet. But I'm not going to get at Mannix this week because, don't get me wrong. On this podcast, he said some things that were like, wow, really, dude, okay. But you can't do it every week, just like Glazier. You got to let these guys breathe a little bit. So I'm not going to get, someone just said that, I'm not going to get at him. We talked about the pay-per-view. Mike Coppinger, Showtime pay-per-view doubleheader is expected to generate more than 100,000 with a chance of 120. So I've heard 100 to 150, somewhere in that range. I have no clue what is actually true. There was what seemingly looks like a high report of a higher number that I won't get into. But it'll be interesting to see what Steven Espinoza says. Not that he's going to give us a deal, or he's not going to give us a deal. But not that he'll excuse me. What am I saying? Oh, not that he'll tell us the number, but you can kind of tell if they were happy enough with it or their expectations a little bit. We'll see. This one is a boxing Twitter. PBC is pussy, moving their pay-per-view date from October 24th to October 31st because they're afraid to compete with the UFC as wild pussy. You have a better chance to have more attention, right? And even on ESPN, because ESPN is going to be all Habib, that weekend. And also, you have a chance to make some money at the gate, which helps the event overall. So that's a funny one. They're pussy for moving it. But yet that person probably, will watch both fights. That would be so funny. It's like, okay, man, but that's kind of helping you. If it was 2 years ago and I told you people should want Crawford to fight Tex at 54 rather than Brook at 47, you would have called me a fucking idiot. But somehow in today's world, that's a better choice. The shit is hilarious. And this comes from Vince Cummings, who I don't always agree with. Like, when I don't say that just randomly. Like, I don't know. I don't have to agree with everybody. It has nothing to do with it. But there's some shit that he's either trolling or he's just like power biased. Either way, but this thing right here, this is right on the fucking money. I hear people saying, "Oh, you should go to Teixeira." Dude, Teixeira hasn't really beaten anybody. Come on. This is a great quote. This is a great tweet. If it was 2 years ago, and I told you Tex at 54 would be better than Brook at 47, you call me a fucking idiot in somehow, some way. And I've given you my thoughts on that. I have. I've given you my thoughts on that, and I'm fine with it. I am fine with it. But clearly, the 147 is the only thing that really holds me back from that. Other people talking about this Crawford needs to get in the rankings and all that. People just they just tweet something. And here's a couple of people that said, I said a long time ago that Terrence Crawford should fight Spence's IBF Mando and force them to make it mandatory. I gotta find that damn tweet, right? And a couple other people said that. I think I'm looking at it. He blocked me for facts, but Montero, from what I've learned with Montero is any time you challenge him with facts that make him look bad or make him need to answer for something, boom, they'll just block the shit out of you. That has nothing to do with how good his podcast is or how good of a writer he is. I don't think he should be a Hall of Fame voter, but hey, more power to him. But I can't see his tweet. I'll just say that right now. I can't see it, but I see his name in this tweet. But it says Spence would dump the IBF. And here's the thing. When you say, oh, he should be the mandatory. Okay, cool. But do you know what that means? there's no such thing as 50-50 then. You say, oh, it forces a deal. And I'm not saying Montero tweeted it because that wasn't the tweet that I read from somebody else that I just read. But you got to remember the split is like 65-35, 70-30, you know. So you're saying, I mean, like this dude's saying, Lazy Lefty, he's saying the fight would be dead in the water right off the split. Because remember, Crawford has said numerous times, they need me, talking about PBC and Spence, they need me more than I need them. I'm the A side. And he said, I'll do it for 50-50, but it shouldn't be. He said, I'm the A side. They need me. It's like, dog, what are you talking about? And they do need him, but it's not the other way around. You know what I mean? This was on the BT Sports Boxing Show. UFC President Dana White, he said, he's talking about getting into boxing again. Funny enough, since the pandemic, I've been looking at other options. We'll probably have something to announce here soon. Yeah, it is in the world of boxing in the next couple of weeks, and maybe he was talking about something else. I don't know, but maybe he was talking about Pacquiao, McGregor fight. You know, maybe that's what he was talking about. I'm not totally sure on that. But yeah, just to kind of go with that purse bid thing, it's like, dog, it's not gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like, that makes it worse because the split, it doesn't bring any of them together. It's a split, actually. That's even worse. And we all know, I mean, they had that run-up on each other in, was it in Nebraska or Texas? I think it was in Texas. Yeah, Texas. And that was fun and all that. But then they had that Twitter beef. And remember, they got on the phone, talked it out, and then that they said, Crawford said, we agree that when the money's on the table, we're going to get this fight. The fight will happen. But before that, you know, during the Twitter beef, Errol Spence made it clear, and I'm going to talk about Bob Arum here too, because he made it clear that him and Heyman had a discussion. He said to him, he tweeted to Crawford saying, Spence said, hey, we have talked about that fight and what it takes to make that fight. So when I hear language like that, that means they're not ready to do a 50-50. And quite, you know, frankly, if push comes to shove and you take your fan hat off and you look at it, it isn't a 50-50 fight. Now, in the ring it is. But on the surface, Spence is clearly a bigger name. Look at the two pay-per-views that they've done comparatively, and just in general, he's a bigger name. He just is. At the gate, exposure, yada, 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 he just is. So that tells me two things. Either they're willing to go 60-40 on it for Spence, or they're willing to give Crawford a sizable check and maybe some of the back end, but it won't be 50-50. And that's what he said. Terrence really didn't respond to that. They got on the phone, and next thing you know, the fight will happen. We just don't know when. Now, the Bob Arum side has been open about saying, we've talked about it. We've kind of beat around the bush. We've set a foundation for where the numbers are, what the numbers are going to be, and he felt confident that the fight would happen sooner than later. Now, obviously, the pandemic didn't help things, but I don't think, well, we can't really say it didn't hurt things, you know, because we don't really know how boxing is going to bounce back all the way. I think that Gervonta Davis and Leo Santa Cruz fight will give us a little bit more, you know, knowledge as far as, okay, maybe, you know, maybe these crowds will come back even more than we think. It's really tough to say. So, yeah, the IBF thing doesn't make sense because it's a lesser – he's not going to take a 65-35 deal. He's just not. But it may come down to Crawford, and it sounds like he re-upped again, right? So when's that deal out? I think a long time. If you listen to Bob Arum in multiple interviews, especially the Boxing Voice, I remember they cleared that up too. So, Now, is there a buyout in his contract? That I don't know. But, you know, it's Top Rank's job and Crawford's job to get him to where it is 50-50, I guess, right? Or to say, I'll go to that platform, and you give me a large chunk of money, you give me a cut on the back if it's there, or you just sign for 60-40. I don't know, but when he says we've already talked about what it takes to make that fight, you know, Wilder and Fury were a lot closer to 50-50. You can look at, you know, Wilder or Fury Gates fighting guys that nobody knew and say it's not 50-50. But as far as being able to talk and you know, even in the summer they did have them on a variety of, you know, shows. That's just closer. They basically made a successful pay-per-view in their first fight, and both of them had something to do with it, right? In the ring and outside the ring. And it just built and it built. And so that's a little different. But this, to me, a lot of people just say, oh, you know, if you did it for this fight, you could do it for that fight. But that was a lot different. They had already had a fight. They had already renegotiated the second fight for a Showtime fight. And we know Tyson Fury had that contract for like a week or whatever they said. And, you know, he decided to take a deal. I'm not saying he ducked anyone, but that's true. He said it himself. So they had already gone down the path of 50-50 with them twice in a row. So that's already contracts that they're willing to sign and fight. You see, that's a difference than never having a fight yet. That's kind of a big difference, actually. It's you know, of course, the media hasn't done a good job of clarifying that. And so people just say, hey, that can happen, that can happen. Yeah, true. But is it actually that? And when you got one guy in Crawford saying, hey, I'm the A side, those guys need me more than, you know, I'm in the Hall of Fame already off of winning divisional, you know, off of Gamboa, Jeff Horn, and Postone. That's his point. So it is what it is. We're going to end this thing with one more boxing Twitter segment here. This is from Gary William, very active on boxing Twitter. Being with a small promoter allows you to develop under the radar with less pressure, but then you reach a point where you need more exposure. You need to sign with a big promoter who's got more pull in the game. And he says, I think that time has come for Jared Ennis and Ruben Villa. That was the last boxing Twitter. He makes a good point. Most of the time that is the deal, and we know Ennis is having some issues right now. Otherwise, he probably would be getting even more opportunity. Showtime has talked, you know, numerous times that it is a little tough to get him fights now because he is such a high risk for not a large, you know, not a large payout. We'll shut it down from there. I think we'll shut it down from there. Okay. Enjoy the fights this weekend. We'll be back next week. You never know. We may pop in Monday. You never know. I say that because it's Lomachenko and Lopez. Vasily Lomachenko against Teofimo Lopez on ESPN, October 17th. If you can't tell, I'm fucking excited. Anyway, let's get out of here. Enjoy the fights this weekend. I got that underdog, minor underdog at what I say, plus 180, plus 160 for Ruben Villa. Enjoy the fights. Be back next week. Peace.
Once you become the world champion, I believe that you feel you have the upper hand. So now, as you fight, let's say you fight 4 or 5 years of straight survival, the bullshit, the holdback, and when you become the world champion, you're like, you know what, I made it. Now I'm going to show you it's business. So I'm going to get every dollar worth of what I deserve.